Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our next Cyber Talk series at SwissSign Institute. And today I'm pleased to have very talented security professional who is CEO and founder of the Tresorit, István Lám, is with me today. And the topic of the day is integrating eSign workflow as a security measure. So today we will listen to István. He has a great presentation to present you with very handpicked case studies, how to secure workflow and the role of the usability of the security and the benefits of the electronic signature. This is a live session and the session will be recorded, and I will start recording, or I have already started recording, and please use Q&A button on the bottom of the windows and send us your question during the presentation. We will be very happy to have all of your questions asked to István later on. My name is Samir Aliyev, and I'm founder of the SwissSign Institute, and I'm your host today. Please do not worry about the questions. I will take all of your questions to István at the end of the presentation. István, stage is yours. And welcome to SwissSign Institute again. It will be great for me as well to listen to you, to learn all the new measures, all the e-signature and the security measures that you are doing in day-to-day business. Stage is yours. You can start your presentation.
Thank you, Samir. Welcome everyone as well. Let me share my screen real quick. Hope you can all see this presentation. So I'm István Lám. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Tresorit, and Tresorit is end-to-end encrypted cloud solution provider. And what I will talk about today is, Samir mentioned, that how eSign workflows can be used as a security measure. But first, I'll start with a few case studies. These case studies are coming from our user base. We have a big user base across the globe, and we can see multiple industries, how they're using end-to-end encryption, and even how they're using signature in their life. And then maybe zooming into the signing process on the traditional way, and then about emails, because we are living in electronic or semi-electronic ways when it comes to signing. And then I'll talk about the role of end-to-end encryption and how we can secure that within the business workflows. So let me start with the first case study, which is wealth management. This is a Swiss company. We see they are managing private and public wealth investments, global investments, but they are managing it from Switzerland. And they are having security in mind, obviously. This information and whatever they communicate with the clients is confidential, strictly confidential. And they switched a couple of years ago for end-to-end encryption. And they are facing with the challenge of signing with foreign clients, various contracts, statements, and that needs to be also kept confidential, while it needs to be simplified in an electronic fashion. And they started using for this Tresorit eSign because Tresorit eSign has end-to-end encryption and digital signature integrated. Then another case study, it's a European Ministry of Health. They are in this setup. They are acting as an independent consultative body between the health insurance companies and the different cases. The thing is, they need to meet with very high standards when it comes to the data, because it's sensitive medical data. What they treated, there's an accident here, there's this illness there, and they need to forward it. That means that when it comes to the digital space, they need the highest available digital secrecy, encryption was paramount for them. And by implementing this encryption, they enabled the process to secure the medical records, obviously, but because they meant fully electronic and also cloud-based, they can. It's easier to use, so that they are used by implementing, and everyone is using the system. They reduce the medical errors, and also the patients were happier after using our system. There is another case study. It's a fintech company, EU-based software service company, wanted a secure solution to manage the flow of data from their clients and among their colleagues, how that is managed and stored, how is it forwarded, and how to prevent fraud. And here the integrated end-to-end encryption platform was helping a lot. There's another case what we see. It's a legal chamber. It's in the legal sector. So when it comes to managing data pre-trial or during trial, it's critical because some of the cases you don't want to release it until it's shown on the court. This European Chamber, they wanted to digitalize its case preparation and document management, but also that some cases these documents need to be signed, and it's better if it's kept in one place. So what they needed is that it's secure, so their non-repudiation, integrity, security, or transmission security of the storage is paramount. At the same time, knowing that it has been signed by someone, it has been accepted, and it's in one place. But outside of the business life, we also help NGOs, in this case, Humanitarian Help for Refugees, and this organization, what they're managing personal data. Some of what life depends on that it's protected truly confidentially, and they managed to switch from a paper-based system to a cloud-based system. They face with strict compliance requirements, and they regularly see audits, so that an electronic way, but an encrypted way, helps their life. So after the case studies, what we see as in many cases, like there is a traditional way of signing, and even though that we are living in the 21st century and we are seeing digitalization everywhere, I'm still facing as a CEO. I'm still facing with cases when the partner is saying that, okay, print it out, sign it, scan it, and send it back. Like, okay, I mean, there are more sophisticated ways, and is it really the best way to solve the problem? But even that case, I mean, even that the signature is placed on the paper, the entire signature flow is much more complex. First, I mean, you need to negotiate a contract. Like usually at the Tresorit, it's not me who's doing it. There's a project manager who's taking care of the negotiation with a partner or a supplier or someone, maybe a customer, and that the contract needs to it gets to a stage where it needs to be signed. If it's paper-based, you need to print that out. The project manager prints that out. Then the signing manager might be, let's say it's me. Then I'm out of office. I'm not there physically. So that project manager is running into my room that, okay, please sign it, but need to leave it to the assistants, and then it sits there for a while. Then it's placed on a stack of papers. It's placed on documents. In our case, we have this physical letterbox inside the office for physical secrecy. But a lot of cases, it's just like, okay, leave it on the desk. And then when you get back to the office, or I get back to the office, and I look at the stack of the papers, and I say, okay, I don't know what's all of that, how urgent it is. I have other things to do. I need to answer this email. I need to run to another meeting. So I forget about it. Then someone needs to remind me that please, that particular agreement and the other particular agreement need to be signed. Okay, I'll do that soon. Then finally, I put my signature on the paper after reviewing quickly, and that signature is there. Then the assistant maybe scans back and forward it back to the project manager, because want to make things faster, even if it's paper-based. Usually, the paper-based signatures on that okay, send back in a scanned version, and then the paper-based is maybe mailed later on. The project manager sends it back to the partner. And the partner goes through the same ping pong internally, print it, sign it, then scan it, and send it back. There's a scanning again, and then some time in the future, the hard copies will be exchanged to have a binding agreement, especially for more important agreements. You watch out for that. For less important agreement, what we see on the market, that kind of signed as scanned version, companies accept that, but for larger agreements they don't. So then the hard copies are exchanged, but that needs to be archived. That needs to be placed somewhere and kept somewhere, because if that paper burns down, then you don't have an agreement. And sometimes you forget that, but comparing the received documents with the version what you agreed is important. I have seen some cases where sudden changes were made on the other side, and not the agreed version was printed out and signed. And where are the breaches? So when potential breaches, you are sending over, or the negotiated contracts might be sent over in unencrypted emails. With those negotiations, and if someone gets access to those unencrypted email flow, a lot of information can get out of the entire content of the contract. Then when it comes to printing out of the documents, just think about the secrecy level of a printing machine. How easy to those printing machine? When was the last time you updated the firmwares and the holes on those systems? So that might be it's an attack surface, but also that if you print it out or someone prints out and it was a wrong copy, then it needs to be shredded. Then you need to make sure those shredded, everyone shreds it, not just throw it into the trash bin. So it's complication as the secrecy comes when you're switching to the physical world. Also, it's the way you just leave it in the printer, the hard copy, print it out and then forget about it, or leave it on the desk of the signing manager, which is a violation of the cleanness policy or other sort of documents management policies. Then how to manage different versions, printed out, scanned versions, the received version from the partner. And I also mentioned that you need to protect the paper-based documents from destruction, and you need to manage different versions, compare it, and keep those copies or hide those copies so that what you receive, what you send, also the originals. So the main threats are coming from changing the medium. So you were negotiating in an electronic fashion, as in email or anything else, or other ways, but usually it's done electronically. But at the same time, when it comes to the signature, you are managing a physical process. So that you change the medium and then you need to change back. Sometimes after the signature, it happens back to an electronic way. And that complicates stuff. So first thinking, let's view or go deeper into parts of the email ping-ponging, how to solve that. How a negotiation looks like that the project manager sends out an email to the counterparty, that partner, project manager or sales representative, contact person is sending it, forwarding it to the in-house lawyer or external lawyer to review those changes. The lawyer may consult with your lawyer that, okay, these changes are happening, or why do you need these changes? And then maybe it gets back to the project manager. And in reality, much more email changes happen. But the problem here is that the attachments in the email body itself can go through multiple stakeholders unencrypted, so that when a document is going through this flow, going through this ping pong, it's a problem. And what can go wrong with this? I mean, you can lose privacy. There are tons of data breaches can happen if you're not protecting the email inboxes properly, or the partner is not protecting their email inboxes properly. Then it might arise legal liabilities and also PR case and so on. And then what I think is important is most of the cases, companies are afraid of the threats coming from emails. This is not just about the encryption; it's a much more complex way. But one part of that is, what if I lose? What if someone gets into the inboxes of my employees, or what if someone gets into the inboxes of my partner's employees? And that threat is there. It's really there. And what can we do for you? In this case, just we have a solution with our encrypted platform. It's basically you can encrypt your normal emails, revoke anytime if you want. You can access these emails from multiple email clients or browser as well, or even mobile. So it doesn't need to be a special system to be set up for this. And it can, just one click, so this users don't need to worry about the complexity of email encryption. And you can continue using your existing email address, your existing email provider. You don't need to change networks and stuff. And then very important in all of this system, the encrypted materials, you can even choose which country to go through, and the data will not go to other countries other than the recipient's country. And then the next question is like, okay, then end-to-end encryption. We talked about end-to-end encryption. Why is it different in email encryption in terms of storing the documents? What's in that, and how can it secure the workflows? So end-to-end encryption is to understand what it means, you need to understand when you are storing a document, sending over the documents through a cloud provider or cloud-based system, what happens, the most simplified cases, that you as a sender upload it to a server in the cloud, and that upload, it's usually in transmission, encryption in transmission, it's basically HTTPS almost all the time. But HTTPS encryption ends at the server. The data is decrypted on the server side, on the cloud side. There might be an at-rest encryption when it's placed on the storage of that cloud provider. And that encryption, in that case, the encryption process and the keys are managed by the cloud provider. So when someone would like to access that data, for instance, there's a storage system or there's an email system, the recipient wants to download the data, or then the system retrieves it from that storage and hand it over to the recipient. But the point is that the provider itself can access the data. With end-to-end encryption, the data stays encrypted from the point you upload it to the cloud. So the data leaves your organization until it gets to the recipient. So the data is never decrypted at any stage in between. And this basically ensures that you and your organization stays in control of whatever data you do. So why is it good? Because obviously it increases your secrecy, but it's also that it simplifies the compliance with the privacy regulations. Just simply the encrypted data, what is stored with us, it's not encrypted private data. Is not private data from our perspective, because what we are storing is gibberish. What we see cannot be used to identify anyone, because we don't, as a provider, have access to the keys and the original material. Also, another thing, when you are, for instance, I mentioned in the presentation, in case of wealth management, it is important also communicate, not just to your clients that, okay, I'm meeting with compliance, but also showing the feeling that I respect your data. This is your personal wealth, this is your family wealth, and I respect you as my dear client and your privacy so much that I choose the highest available standard for your data. So that's also helps in confidence from your clients and partners. So then what about e-signatures? So e-signatures itself, there are multiple multiple e-signatures, but in general, it can enable you to prevent forgery. It can enable to avoid unauthorized access, and then you can have data integrity. The same documents, you know that what you started in the signature process is what you end up with. You don't need to compare the physical documents with with the agreed version of the documents and so on, because it's there. You can make a connection easily. And when it comes to the workflows, obviously, when you integrate e-signature into your way of doing your business, the example what I started with, the signature example, that time-consuming and complex process can be simplified and prone to errors. Then the whole system, the whole workflow can kept in digital space. You don't need to break the medium, and also that you don't necessarily need to just have signatures for agreements, but you might want to document internal approvals or internal agreements, minutes, which not necessarily a legal agreement, and you would not do a signature, but in paper-based, but in a digital world, if it's so simple to do, you can do that, and the documentation is done properly then. And the whole point of doing this is that you increase security, reliability. The way of doing business can be easier. You don't need to wait for your project manager or the customer's project manager to get to the signature party. You can close the deals earlier, or you can get the required partner on board earlier. And that the point is that it can be integrated into your way of working. It doesn't necessarily need to, you don't necessarily need to introduce new workflows. And what is important when it comes to, for instance, legal bindingness, different types of e-signatures can be binding in different jurisdictions. But the point is, bindingness is also can be achieved depending on the jurisdiction. Tresorit, we are providing simple e-signature worldwide, and simple e-signature is a EU term, but it's similar in the US, for instance, which is what signature, but in the EU it's a simple e-signature. And in Switzerland, we introduced qualified e-signature, which I will talk about soon. And in the EU, we will also introducing qualified e-signature soon, which means the qualified is equal to the completely equal to the paper-based signature in terms of bindingness. And when it comes to the Tresorit, the signature products, why those companies switched to using us? I mean, it's, as I mentioned, it uses the same end-to-end encryption, and this is unique. The other, I mean, Tresorit itself is unique in terms of using end-to-end encryption, but we developed our e-signature product with keeping that promise in mind that even the signed documents on our platforms cannot be viewed any of our stuff or any of our systems. So that's there. And you can have the same access control. You can have the document management lifecycle. What's built in Tresorit integrated with that. Also integrated with the email encryption, what is on the Tresorit platform. Oh, and here you can see, oh, sorry, we haven't started the nice little animation about that. So the signature can be done with a simple verification or more complex verification if it's required. So what a more complex for getting a qualified signature, the person of the other side needs to be identified a lot more. This means that reading in the ID card, looking at video identification and so on. And that's that's a more complex, and not every use case requires that signature. But we introduced that in Switzerland. As I mentioned, we'll introduce it in other parts of or inside EU soon. And with this partnership with SwissSign, you can have basically paper equivalent signature there. So to as to kind of wrap up what I was talking at the closing to the end of my presentation, what are the risks of unencrypted workflows? Obviously, data breaches and insider threats from the providers what you're using. If the information is encrypted all the way, then you don't need to worry about, or you need to worry less about the systems you are using and the data goes through. When it comes to unencrypted information management, then compliance issues is there. There are many breaches, many cases when an accident happens, data was leaked, and they found it could have been prevented by simply using encryption. And then it was found that there's also a compliance issue because, okay, they didn't choose the right tools available. There's also a reputational damage. Why didn't you choose the right tools? When you are having a breach, it's obvious next to the reputational damage, which itself is a financial loss, but because of many other reasons, fines, you may face with the financial loss. And then after that, you may face with a lot of troubles, legal cases, and that might disrupt your entire business. So the risks are high when it comes to not securing your information. Then I was talking about one part of your communication, emails, some of the files, which documents, which being signed. But I want to highlight that when it comes to your daily life and managing your workflows, let's not forget that the negotiations might happen through video conferencing tools, whether it's secured or not. There might be other system you use on the way of forwarding information, for instance, an EHR system in case of our healthcare clients. So there are many aspects of your workflows. What I covered is like very narrowly to the document management and the signature process. But when it comes to your decision as someone in charge for managing the information secrecy inside an organization, then you need to also consider other aspects to have an umbrella view. So as a summary, what I was talking about, the signature in general is industry agnostic, most of the cases. It can be adopted almost in all industries. Then when you are switching from physical to an electronic signature, you can also view not just as a simplification of the business process, but as a security measure on contracts and how you manage the contracts. Because the traditional way, as I showed you, has many potential breaches. Then negotiating the contract, let's not forget about it, that it's is part of the contracting management. And that can leak highly classified information if you don't include inside the whole workflow of the signature, because the same document is actually ping-ponged earlier, but is included later on in the signature process. So just securing your signature parts of your workflow doesn't make sense if you don't meet with the same demands or have the same level of secrecy on the email parts or the contract negotiating part. I cover the end-to-end encryption, which is the highest level of protecting the information, and because only the sender and the recipients can see its content, no one else on its way. So that concept, if it's used in document management, in the signature and the emails, then can help you a lot. An eSign, as I mentioned, it can be a security measure because simplified workflow, solve many security issues, and we have an integrated solution for these three problems, with from the document management to the email and the signatures as well. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm ready for your questions. Samir, back to you, Samir.
Yes, István, thank you very much for the great presentation. It was really useful for our attendees. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. We are looking forward to receive the questions, and I have already something to ask you. First of all, is there any future for you that to also implement AI technologies developments right now, what we are seeing to your technology? Do you think any collaboration between the e-signature and AI together can work better for better security, better future?
In terms of AI and contract management in general, there are a lot of examples, contract management systems, which are using, for instance, AI for the first. I mean, the first kind of AIs were in the document management world, like the OCRs, the object. So the character recognition systems, and the scan documents, do they match with the printed out documents? That was the first kind of things back in the old days when OCRs were good. Now that the AIs are like more complex analysis of a contract can be done, and then put it into the places whether it meets with certain requirements and so on and so on. That part is there, and there are some providers who is
okay. I think there's something wrong. Do you hear me well still?
I don't know. Someone is start the whiteboard.
Okay, sorry, that was a mistake. The next question I have for you, right now, using e-signature for the contracts, for the negotiation to secure it, all those e-signatures are recognized by courts or not? In case we have an issue, we are going in front of the court. Are those e-signatures are recognized?
Well, depends. That's the short answer. But let me elaborate on this. So that the e-signatures, it started by both in the EU and the US, they're creating this kind of different e-signature kind of laws back in the early 2000s, so that the digital signature can be recognized as similar to handwritten one. But it's also like there are other things. So there are two kind of directions what we can see in the market. One is going back to like an online transaction, like proof or level of proof, which just go think about it. When you go to Amazon.com or you buy something online, you are making a contract. Or when you go to a website and go to Facebook and you're giving up your personal information, your personal life and everything, that, oh, here I am, you can take my personal information. You don't sign a paper-based contract, you just underclick.
Yes, that's true.
So the contracts can be made on just by actions, and that is recognized. I mean, or the whole digital or online world depended on, and most of the e-commerce is just depending on this type of contract relationship with the others, and so that exists there. And that is the simple signature. So when it comes to like the digital, well, or e-commerce type of contracting, then that's this digital signature. The identification there is lower. So what you try to identify is try to connect it to an IP address, email address, phone number, but you don't necessarily be sure whether that exact natural person is there, but in this case, it is suspected. When it is life or death situation, then it might not be enough at the court. But can Facebook prove that you have given up on your personal information? So far, yes. So far, they can defend by just underclicking. Can an e-commerce platform or web shop can win a case on court that, okay, that person wanted to buy from me, underclicked, and then purchased with a credit card? Then kind of like on a court cases, it might be less. But that's the simple signature as ADAS, the European regulation, says. Then the level of identification for other types of contracts sometimes required by law, and sometimes required by just the level of the transactions, or by the contracting parties who want to say, yes, I want to have the similar bindingness as the paper-based contract. This e-commerce type of digital transaction is not enough for me. Give you an example. You cannot sell your house. In most of the jurisdictions, you cannot sell your house electronically with an electronic signature, even with a qualified signature, which is like the highest level of kind of identification. In some jurisdictions, you need to go to a notary to sell your house, so that not every contract can be moved entirely into the digital space unless you have a digital notary. But that that itself, a normal like a civil kind of contracts can be entirely moved for qualified signatures. So that the qualified signature means that the natural persons are identified. So it's not like an email address that I can prove that someone has an access to that email address, or I can prove that a transaction was coming from that IP address, or that phone number, that SMS can be read. That natural person needs to be identified. That means that back in the early 20s, or it meant, or the 2000s, it meant that you went to an office, physically, you went with your passport, and you get the smart card in return with your private key, and that was binding to you. And there was this certificate authority who issued the certificate, which was on that smart card. And then with the smart card, putting it into a special reader with a special computer, you can create a qualified signature. How cumbersome. So then today it can be done, this identification can be done like electronically, video wise.
or voice recognition as well. I was calling to my bank last week and they asked me that we have a new technology to recognize you by voice instead of asking security questions. Then I said I shouldn't answer all the questions again and again. And now there are some new innovations in the e-signature. You just talk a lot for the teams, for the corporate solutions. What do you advise also to the individual people that they might secure their documents, they might secure their, for example, insurance contract or a contract with their colleagues, I don't know what. Do you advise us to use the e-signature for the private purpose?
Well, I don't know if you had an experience as a private person, but I did, like print out, sign it, and scan and send it back. Type of contracting. Yes, as a private person, you are maybe less, you manage less contracts. And most of the private persons are signing just a few contracts in their life or per year. Yes. So it might not be good, like training, get through and get to know a new system for e-signatures who doesn't necessarily want to use a new system. But if you are having a system which you already use, and you're familiar with that for your private use, then using it in your private life might simplify your life. But when it comes to like private individuals, I think the e-signature should be on the other way, so that when you're a private person, you are contracting with a company. So that might be you're contracting with a private person, but you're contracting with a company, then the company is sending you the digital signature enabled something.
We have one other very interesting question. Hopefully you have some answer to it, but you shouldn't also have. Is there any country where you can use a digital signature to vote for parliament members? Like voting with digital signature?
Can you repeat? So that,
is there any country where you can use the digital signature or e-signature for the parliamentary vote?
So digital e-voting.
E-voting, exactly.
Okay, e-voting is, I think, is different. In many ways, it is a different question than signing in digital signature, because e-voting is I mean, in Switzerland itself is being discussed and being introduced. But e-voting, the most important thing that anonymity. While you are signing a contract, what I was telling, that the other person, how the other person is identified in the contract. But when it comes to voting, then you should stay anonymous. So that it can be done with cryptographic way, that on a way that it is a kind of blank signature tricks, but it's a different system and a different way of doing it. But it's a different requirements as well. But e-voting exists, and I hope that will exist, because I think it's much better and much more secure than letter-based voting or something like that.
Great. I believe we have already answered all the questions. Last but not least, I have one more question. We talk a lot the e-signature, and recently Apple also introduced to sign the contracts or papers through the iPhone or Adobe. Are there, can we count them as an e-signature, kind of real signature, because we might use them in a private or the business purpose?
Adobe, I use a lot, and then Adobe has an e-signature platform, and I'm familiar with. And yes, they're introducing the tech giants also introducing mainly what we were talking about is simple. So that's a simple signature, which is most of the cases is enough. It needs to be, to consult with your lawyer to decide whether it's enough for the transaction. But simple signature for simple transactions, it might be enough. And I think it's great that it's happening. And it's in this case, for instance, Apple. Then a lot of people are familiar with Apple systems. As I mentioned to you that as a private person, you may not. I may not advise you to start using a new platform just for e-signature because you will sign a few agreements per year. But a lot of people familiar with Google or Apple products, and then they can start using e-signature, and that's good because then less paper, and it's also that simplified workflow. Yes, that's a great thing. Step forward to this digital world.
Good. That was very informative session. Thank you very much, István. And we're pleased to have you here. I have one more question. Let me ask this one, and we can close the session later on. Could this option be considered for remote areas with with limited internet access?
Well, or platforms, so Tresorit itself relies heavily on the internet. With scarce internet connection, it doesn't mean it can. With bad internet connection, it doesn't work. It works with that, but it requires internet connection. There are digital signature platforms. Actually, the old-fashioned ways with the smart cards and stuff that works without internet. That's actually can be used even for qualified signature, to generate qualified signature, and it's there.
Perfect. So thanks a lot, István. It was also very good for me. Also, I learned a lot today. And I hope our attendees also enjoyed the session. And we will send the recordings to you in case you missed part of it. And you can watch always to it through the link that you will receive. And we would like to see you again at our events, István. It was great to hear again from Tresorit. Last year, we heard you at our Global Cyber Conference. And thanks a lot. Enjoy your stay in Bern and have a nice, lovely evening.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Stay safe.